Hello, 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 my loves. As always, I hope that this live or this replay finds you well and in excellent spirits. So, welcome to a special edition of the Astro Room live here on YouTube. I am your host and your favorite astrologer, Mel of Divine Feminine Works, where I help people unlock their divinity and discover their magic. So, if this is our first time meeting, welcome. And as always, if you are returning, welcome back. So, this channel is everything astrology, spirituality, and manifestation. So, if those are the things you like, if those are the things you love, or if those are the things you want to learn more about, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell so you'll always be notified when I come out with new content. All right, my love. So, like I said, this is a special edition of the Astro Room. Today, I'm going to be talking about a transit that we are currently in the midst of, that we are currently experiencing, and that we will experience for the next 6 months. Now, if you are not new to this channel, you know that I do the weekly astro forecast every week, right? And so I'm always talking about astrological transits. However, some transits are more powerful, some transits are more relevant, if you will. And this transit that I will be discussing today is one of those transits. And it is namely Mars opposite Pluto. This is a pretty big deal. Pluto is sort of the star of 2024 as it is changing signs, which it does not do often. And then when you have Mars making an aspect to Pluto, it can be very explosive, volatile, but most importantly, it fosters transformation and evolution. I think I mentioned this in my live on Monday about how when we're in school and we're learning about the evolution of the human species, right? And it seems like something that's so esoteric, kind of. However, the astrology right now, it's like we're living evolution. We are experiencing, I mean, we're always evolving, let's just say that, but this is a time when we're conscious of it. And so this transit is particularly important for two reasons. Number one, we are experiencing this on a collective level because Pluto is a collective energy planet, right? So it has a lot to do with society as a whole, with everyone, with generations, right? And then we also are experiencing this on a personal level where we will experience transformation, change, and volatility in our personal lives. All right. So, this live is all about this Mars opposite Pluto transit, what it means. I'm going to be breaking it down sort of step by step. I'm going to be talking about the astrology and the important dates to look for, as well as the themes that this particular transit will evoke so that you know exactly how to maneuver this energy and how it is going to play out in your life. All right. So before we get into all of the details, of course, housekeeping and announcements. So if you're catching this on the live, I sincerely appreciate you. Don't forget to say hi on your way in and hit that like button, please and thank you. And if you are watching this on the replay, I appreciate you just as much. Hopefully you find value in this broadcast. And if that is the case, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell if you haven't already, that would be great. I feel like this information is super important, and the more engagement that this channel has, the more the algorithm will push out these videos to those who need to hear it. All right. So your engagement and your support is so important, and I'm so grateful for it. So thank you so much. In terms of announcements, currently, I have my 2025 year ahead reading. This is the only reading that I will be doing for the remainder of the year. It's really designed to help you get on track and understand what 2025 has in store for you personally. All right, 2025 is a really dynamic year, and you definitely want to be prepared in terms of the energy. I look at your natal chart, I look at the transits, I also look at the numerology so that you know exactly what will be happening for you in 2025. If you're interested, it is currently 40% off, which is a steal. And this 40% off discount only lasts until the 7th. So I would definitely sign up sooner rather than later. This reading will be discounted throughout the month of November. However, this first week is when you will receive the biggest discount. So the link is in the description box below, and it is also tagged to this video. And then last but not least, maybe you're not ready for all of that. Maybe you're new to astrology and you kind of just want to get your feet wet a little bit, right? I've got you covered. So you may want to sign up for one of my free live workshops on your natal chart. Specifically, it's called your Cosmic Selfie, an intro to your natal chart, right? This gives you a broad overview of your natal chart so you can start deciphering it, understanding it, and reading it. Best of all, it is absolutely free. I hold these sessions every 2 weeks. So if you feel like, all right, I can't do it soon, maybe I can do it sometime in December, you can sign up for a date then, all right? And that will also be linked in the description box below and tagged to this video. All right, all right. So that is it by way of announcements. Hello, Melissa. Love that name, by the way. That's my name as well. Hopefully, you are having a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in. All right. So, like I said, this is the transit that we are going to be feeling the most. And I use feeling intentionally because we're going to be feeling this quite viscerally. This is a transit of volatility, it is explosive in a way. Just in a nutshell, it's definitely emblematic of war, conflict, strife, explosions, right? Think of a mine, right? And typically, when you are in a mine, right, you have sort of a pickaxe and you're picking away at things on a smaller level. But on a bigger level, a lot of times they have to use dynamite. And this is kind of how this transit is going to transpire and the energy of it. It's like taking dynamite to a lot of things hidden under the surface. Pluto is the energy of the underworld, the underground. And so taking dynamite to that is really going to unearth a lot of things. So there's this energy, like I said, of volatility. There's this energy of strife, conflict, all of this great stuff. Hello, Monarcha. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. And so we're going to feel this and we're going to feel it in a way that might be uncomfortable. However, uncomfortability oftentimes is a component of change, especially change on this kind of level. And so we kind of just have to roll with the punches and see where the chips fall after this dynamite has exploded. Now, the thing about this transit is that when we're talking about outer planets, and when I say outer planets, I'm typically talking about like Saturn and beyond. So Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, right? So Pluto was an outer planet. Mars is kind of an interpersonal planet. It is a personal planet. However, the fact that it is aspecting an outer planet means that the effects of this transit are kind of far reaching. Okay. So depending on the distance between a planet and Earth and its orbit around the sun determines like how long these transits will last. Now, because of the specific astrological configuration of both Pluto and Mars, a transit like this that would normally last maybe a week or two is actually lasting 6 months. It started about 2 weeks ago around the time of the Aries full moon, and we won't be completely rid of this energy until late April 2025. So that's why I'm doing this video so that you can understand what the energies mean when things start kind of going haywire, when things get intense, right? This is meant to inform you so that you can be prepared. All right. So, that being said, let's jump into everything. So, this is the agenda for today. So, first, we're going to talk about Mars and Pluto's energies generally, Mars and Pluto energies generally, what they mean, what they symbolize, and how they play into this particular transit. Thereafter, we will look at the astrology, namely oppositions, because Mars is going to be opposite Pluto, and a timeline. I'll be showing you the astrological chart so you can see exactly how this is going to be playing out in the sky. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, we're going to be talking about the transit themes. So, what does this even mean? How is this going to affect you? And how can you best prepare? All right. So, that being said, let's jump into it. And before I move on, I just want to remind you guys that if you are interested in extra content, you'll definitely want to join my channel membership and become a roommate. And speaking of roommates, not only are your monthly astro forecasts going up this weekend, I'm also going to be doing a separate video on Mars opposite Pluto for each sign. So if you want more information on how this will affect your particular sign, then if you haven't already, join the channel membership and you will be fully prepared. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into things. things. So first, we're going to talk about Mars and Pluto energies generally. Now, what I find funny, not funny, haha, but kind of ironic, is that we're in the midst of Scorpio season, right? Scorpio is all about death, rebirth, and transformation. And the rulers, the planetary rulers of Scorpio are Mars and Pluto. So, first and foremost, I want you to locate Scorpio in your chart, which house Scorpio occupies in your chart. This is going to be an area of life that is extremely intensified, right? As the rulers of Scorpio face off and sort of vie for energetic dominance. This is going to directly impact the house that Scorpio occupies in your chart. So take a look and see where that is happening. Now, you might say, okay, maybe this is happening in your second house of money, which would make you a Libra rising, right? You're like, oh, I haven't really noticed anything yet. Understand that Pluto energy is a slow burn. So this is a transformation that's happening over 6 months. Think of it as like a landmine, right? It's not every step that you take that's going to explode. However, sometimes some steps will. So over the next 6 months, there's going to be this popping off of energy where, it could be sudden, it could be erratic, and it could be very volatile. All right. So this will definitely help you understand sort of the peak dates that these explosions perhaps will happen and where it's happening in your life. All right. So, first up, let's talk about Mars. So, Mars is the planetary ruler of Aries. Mars is fiery. Mars is direct. Mars really wants to have things and sort of have and get these things in the fastest way possible. In our natal charts, in astrology generally, Mars represents what you want and how you get it. Okay. So it's about this sort of focused, self centered energy, right? It's like, I want a piece of cake. How do I get this piece of cake? I go down to the kitchen, I cut a slice and I eat it, right? That's sort of Mars. Now, Mars also operates on a very instinctive level. And when I say instinctive, I mean like our basic animal instincts, that fight or flight, that defensiveness, right? That's very emblematic of the Mars energy signature. And speaking of defensiveness, Mars very much is defensive. Okay. Mars is known as the god of war. Okay. In Greek mythology, or if it's either Greek or Roman, I can't remember, but Mars, right, is known as Aries. Aries is the warrior. And what do warriors do? They fight. They're very defensive. So part of the volatility comes from this firecracker defensive energy that Mars exudes. Now, Mars is going to be opposite Pluto. And this is it really ties into the energy signature of Mars. I just said that Mars is defensive, right? So Mars opposing Pluto or Mars opposing any planet is sort of the natural stance for Mars. Mars is defensive. Mars is facing off people. Mars is confrontational. It's in your face. So are you getting to understand how this transit can be so volatile? This is going to have people popping off, fighting. This could even lead to violence. Okay. Which timing timing is so sort of interesting, right? Because this is all happening at the time where we are going into one of the most volatile elections here in the United States, which is going to have a global impact, perhaps like we've never seen before. And when you add this particular transit, it is just like, whoa, it is almost nuclear in the way that it could be volatile. All right. So Mars, defensive, competitive, confrontational on the one hand. Then we've got Pluto. Now, like I said, Pluto is an outer planet. So when we talk about Pluto's energy, it is about transformation and evolution, right? And we experience that on a personal level when we're talking about where Pluto is in our natal charts, right? But generally speaking, Pluto is known as a generational planet. So you know how they talk about boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, all of that stuff? That is emblematic of the movement of Pluto through the signs. So when we talk about Pluto, we're talking about energy that is affecting the collective. And so Pluto is all about dismantling and then rebuilding. Pluto is transformation, it's death, it's rebirth. And so inherent in that, that is how we sort of evolve. This transformation, this never-ending cycle of life and death. Pluto wants to transform, not just for the sake of transformation, but for purification. As you evolve, don't you arguably get better? Things morph into something that's more useful, that's more efficient, right? So, this is what Pluto wants to do. Pluto wants to take us forward, okay? And so, inherent in Pluto energy, it's just like, all right, this isn't working out, so we got to get rid of this. And by get rid of, it's a permanent get rid of. It's not like, oh, we'll entertain this for right now and then come back to it. No, Pluto is all about permanent change. So Pluto wants to change, Mars wants to fight. And now, when these two planets oppose each other, you see again how this volatility sort of comes up. Mars is like, listen, I'm defensive, I'm fighting, I'm fired up about something. Mars isn't just, confrontational and fiery for no reason. It goes back into that defensiveness, right? Mars has a particular cause or desire that it defends. And it's so passionate about this cause that it will fight to the death sometimes to defend it. So we've got fighting, confrontational, and fire on the one hand, and then we have transformation and evolution on the other. So this causes, I feel like I'm going to be saying volatility so much, but this causes volatility and it causes disruption. It's dynamite, right? Cool. So those are the Mars and Pluto energies. So now let's keep it moving and let us talk about the astrology. Okay. So we understand Mars and Pluto as planets. However, it goes a step further. Mars and Pluto are going to be in different signs. Now, I already talked about Scorpio. Neither of these planets are in Scorpio, but because they rule Scorpio, Scorpio and wherever it is in your natal chart becomes important because this is where you're going to feel the intensity of this transit. It's one of the places where you're going to feel it. Now, during the course of these 6 months, Mars will be in Leo, and then it will retrograde back into Cancer. And it's going to spend quite a bit of time in Cancer, which also contributes to this volatility because Mars is super uncomfortable in Cancer. Remember, I said before, Mars is direct. It's like, I want what I want. How do I get it in the quickest way possible? When you put fire in water, the water extinguishes the fire, right? That's like Mars in Cancer. So apart from wanting things and trying to find the fastest way to get them, the water of Cancer, namely our emotions, are going to slow down or even extinguish that fire. And also remember, I just said Mars is defensive because of what it's so passionate about. So it's like having this desire, this passion, not being able to go after it directly, and then your feelings kind of getting in the way. So apart from Mars being confrontational just on its own, when it's in Cancer, it's this extra level of frustration because we can't get to what we want fast enough. And we're feeling all of these things. Right. So that's Mars in Cancer. However, for a brief stint during this 6 months, Mars is also going to be in Leo. As a matter of fact, Mars will be moving into Leo tomorrow on November 3rd. Now, this is a much better placement for Mars because Mars in Leo, Leo is a fellow fire sign. Mars in Leo is confident, it's passionate, and it is main character energy. So Mars in Leo is like the green light to go forward. Whereas Mars in Cancer, you're taking a couple of steps back and things are a little slow to get going, which could, again, cause a whole bunch of frustration. So Mars during this 6-month period is going to be in Leo, retrograding back into Cancer. So Mars is going to spend a majority of the end of this, the beginning of 2025 into the spring of 2025 in the sign of Cancer, which again, Mars doesn't necessarily like. And then we also have Pluto changing signs as well. And again, I said I was going to say volatility a lot, but notice how both of these planets, and you'll see on the chart fairly in a couple of minutes, both of these planets are transiting different signs. It's not like they're in the same sign for this entire 6-month stretch. So there is this unsteadiness when it comes to the planetary energies because they're shifting. The planetary energies are shifting. So Pluto is still currently in Capricorn, but it will be leaving Capricorn on the 19th of November. So Pluto is teetering the line between Capricorn and Aquarius. So Pluto in Capricorn is dismantling institutions and structures, period. It's doing this on a collective level, as we're definitely seeing here in the United States. And it's also doing it on a personal level, wherever Capricorn is in your chart. So anything that's structured, anything like tradition is being dismantled to make way for new structures and new traditions, as evidenced by Pluto in Aquarius. And again, Pluto's all about transformation, purification, evolution. So this evolution is happening for us wherever Capricorn and Aquarius are in our chart. And then briefly, I want to discuss oppositions. Oppositions are an astrological aspect. It's when two planets are 180 degrees apart from each other. So think of it as a seesaw. You've got Mars on one end, Pluto on the other. And there can be balance or there can be imbalance, right? The whole point of oppositions is to find a suitable middle ground, right? Oppositions highlight extremes. So on the one end, you've got this fiery fighting energy, fight or flight energy with Mars. On the other hand, you have Pluto, which is about transformation and evolution, a slow burn. And at times you may feel one or the other more strongly. However, the best way to make use of this energy is to find balance, both collectively and individually. All right. Let's see. Is there anything else I need to talk about with respect to? Nope, that's pretty much it. All right, so now let's look at the dates, the peak dates of this transit so that you know exactly when things are going to be popping off. All right, so this is our chart. I've isolated it to just Mars, Pluto, the moon, and the sun. So this transit really began around the time of the Aries full moon in October, which, as you can see, was October 17th. So we've got the sun and the moon opposing each other. And then we've got Mars at 22 degrees of Cancer and Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. They're not exactly opposite yet. However, Mars entered the range of opposition. So this was the time when things started to ramp up. Now, again, you want to pay attention to wherever Cancer is in your natal chart, to where Capricorn is in your natal chart. And then you also want to look at where Scorpio is, because again, both of these planets rule Scorpio. So this was October 17th, and that's the first peak of this particular transit. So Mars was in Capricorn, getting aggy and being frustrated, right? Mars was in Cancer. Mars in Cancer energy is very much like a mama bear protecting its cubs. The energy of Mars in Cancer, although uncomfortable, it has a very emotional element to it. It's like you become super sensitive about the things that you desire. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, Cancer is very much about our basic emotional needs. And if those basic emotional needs are being threatened, if they're being messed with, that's when the claws come out, and that's when you're really ready to fight. And again, fight to the death. And then on the other hand, Pluto was in Capricorn, doing its thing, dismantling systems, breaking traditions, all of this other stuff. And so this is when this transit started to emerge in our lives, and that was around October 17th. So then the next date is tomorrow, November 3rd. So let's advance this and see what we got going on. Oops. All right. So on November 3rd, I want you to notice that Mars is exactly at 29 degrees of Cancer. And Pluto is exactly at 29 degrees of Capricorn. All right. So in astrology, the 29th degree is known as the anaretic degree. It is when shit really gets real. It's when things get intense. It's when things pop off. So again, Mars in Cancer, your basic emotional needs are threatened, the claws come out. Pluto in Capricorn is taking a wrecking ball to everything. You know, the example I gave before of being in a mine and setting off that dynamite and kaboom, everything not only blows to smithereens, but a lot of things become uncovered. I also like to think of Pluto in Capricorn, it's like Pet Cemetery. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but it's like pets buried in a cemetery and all of a sudden they start rising from the grave and coming up to life. That's very much emblematic of how this particular transit is playing out. All right. And also notice that Mars is also trine to the moon in Sagittarius on November 3rd. And this, it's going to feel like whatever your desire is, whatever that cause that you're taking up, you're going to be extremely optimistic about it. Like you're really going to be feeling fired up and passionate about this desire or this cause. Okay. So that is November 3rd. Now, keep in mind, this is all, we are just days away from the election here in the United States, and the volatility is, it's, you could really cut it with a knife. That's how thick it is. Right. And this energy of basic needs is playing out ridiculously often, right? And how people think their rights are being taken away. And it's interesting and it's intentional that I use the phrase like, you know, mother bear protecting its cubs. What is one of the hottest debates, one of the hottest issues with this election? Abortion rights. Mama, cub. Astrology never lies, I tell you. So, yeah, people are really amped up about this shit. People are like, you cannot take my rights away. You cannot do this. Meanwhile, Pluto and Capricorn is like, listen, we are dismantling shit that's no longer working. Maybe the way that things were with respect to that issue are not in alignment with our evolution where we're trying to go. So that's definitely something to think about. And it's going to be interesting as hell to see as this election plays on. But this is sort of the next peak in this transit that's lasting 6 months. So now the following peak is going to be in early 2025, and it's going to be January 7th. Oops. January 7th. Now, this is important because this is when Mars goes back into Cancer. So between November 3rd and January 7th, Mars actually is hanging out in Leo. And so, like I said before, Mars in Leo, it is the lion, it is roaring, it is fiery, it's direct movement forward. But then come January 7th, this is when Mars re-enters Cancer and things get a lot more agitated again, right? I really talked about how Mars in Cancer is like wanting to do something, but emotions get in the way and then getting frustrated that you can't have the thing that you want when you want it. Yeah, we go back to that energy in January, okay? And at this time, Pluto is now in Aquarius. So Pluto has finished its dismantling in Capricorn, and now we're moving forward. Now we're about building structures, right? The structures that have been torn down now leave room for new structures. And these structures have to align with the collective, the good of the collective, the evolution of the collective, but also liberation of the collective. So this means that a lot of the things that we're going to see as Pluto progresses into Aquarius have a lot to do with liberation, have a lot to do with freedom, personal freedom for the collective. Whereas everyone is part of the collective, everyone has their own individual freedoms. And this is a theme that we're going to see playing out over the next 20 years as Pluto makes its way through Aquarius. But either way, January 7th is that next peak date where Mars is back in Cancer and Pluto has moved into Aquarius. All right, so next we are going to be moving to April 16th. All right. April 16th. This is when Mars is again at 29 degrees of Cancer. That 29th degree of Cancer will not leave us alone over these next 6 months. And again, remember I said 29 degrees is when shit really pops off. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if something does pop off around this time. And what I'm being reminded of right now is that Mars has a lot to do with war. So, issues related to war, the wars currently in the world, perhaps even new wars forming may be a thing. So, I'd be very interested to see what transpires on that front on or around April 16th. Again, that 29th degree of Mars in Cancer, it's just agitated. It's claws out. It's defensive. It's sensitive about its shit, right? It's just, yeah, it's a lot. And then finally, we're going to go to April 26th. This is sort of when we are getting out of this transit, and it's sort of the last phase or the last leg of this transit. And this is when Mars will be exactly opposite Pluto. But now Mars and Pluto are both moving forward. So Mars is going to be at 3 degrees of Leo. And then Pluto is going to be at 3 degrees of Aquarius. And so we've left the agginess and the frustration and the sensitivity of Cancer. And now Mars is a lot more strengthened, more fiery, more direct, and more forward moving within Leo, its fellow fire sign. This is where it's comfortable. So we have this started 2 weeks ago with one of the peaks meaning that Mars is exactly going to be opposite Pluto tomorrow on November 3rd. And then we close out this transit for the most part at the end of April 2025 with Mars again opposing Pluto. Now understand this, between October and between April, right? Between October and April, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Mars and Pluto are going to be in aspect to each other within varying degrees, right? So this goes back to what I was saying before about Scorpio. Scorpio, not only where it is in your chart natally, so you know where this is playing out individually, it's also about transformation. Now, I talked ad nauseum about transformation over the last couple of weeks. I've done so many videos on Scorpio energy, but I did a Q&A last week, which I will link in the description box below. So you can check it out where I really go into the depths of Scorpio energy. But I use the word depths intentionally because, again, that analogy of going in a mine and exploding dynamite, that's one of the ways that Scorpio transforms things. So things are popping up. Things will be popping up that are less than savory, that are uncomfortable, that have been hidden in the dark. Scorpio uncovers secrets. And I mean, one of the secrets that has really been uncovered in a crazy sort of way is everything happening with Diddy. Now, things are a little quiet right now, but understand he is a Scorpio sun. And so with this Mars opposite Pluto transit, oh, honey, the skeletons are going to be coming out even more. But it's not just with him, it's just with society in general. Skeletons coming out the closet. Now, in your own life, if you've got some skeletons coming out the closet, or if you got some skeletons buried in the closet, or bodies buried in the backyard, hopefully not literally, that area of life that Scorpio governs in your natal chart, this is where you're going to see secrets revealed. Skeletons coming out the closet. So be prepared. If you're someone who's really been tight-lipped and you've got a whole bunch of secrets, this transit may not necessarily be comfortable for you. So it's really important that you understand that. All right. So I think that's it with respect to the astrology. Okay. So now let's move into the themes of this transit and sort of what it means spiritually and what we can expect to transpire. So essentially, I broke it down into 3 different themes. Number 1 is transformation and evolution. And when it comes to that, because Mars and Pluto are both the rulers of Scorpio, that's why I call it that, right? But we are witnessing evolution in real time. Like I said before, we're always evolving, but we're at a point in time, especially with Pluto teetering the line between Aquarius and Capricorn, we're conscious of this evolution. And I love this because not only are we conscious about it, but because the age of Aquarius is the age of information where we have access to more. Not only are we conscious of this evolution, we can do things to speed it up, to change it, right? That's the beauty of being conscious of things. You can now direct the ship in a better way rather than just sitting on the sidelines and waiting for things to happen to you. Okay. However, this transformation is not without strife. Now, I've used several examples talking about transformation and evolution. There's the caterpillar morphing into the butterfly, there's the phoenix rising from the ashes. And when you think about these on esoteric spiritual levels, don't those sound beautiful? They sound so profound, and they are. But the intricacies of this transformation is ugly, it's dirty, and it's volatile. So even though we are witnessing this, the fact that we are conscious of it means that we are conscious of the volatility, the violence, the strife, the war. And that may make many people feel uncomfortable, right? So many people are waking up right now to the fact that they are a spiritual being and the world is looking different to them regardless or irrespective of this particular transit. And now we're going to be seeing a lot of evils in the world as if we haven't already. A lot of fighting, a lot of war. And understand, it is necessary. It is necessary. It's not nice. It's not fun. It's not, oh, this is great. This is why it's so important that we've become spiritually aware. Because for the longest time, we were conditioned to think that these kind of things are bad, they're evil, they have no place in your life. Do you understand now that by putting those things down and by giving them a negative connotation and by telling you and by being told to stay away from them or shy away from them, it has really stunted our evolution. Now, it's not to say that you need to go out there and shoot people. No. No, 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 no. This is about strife, conflict, war leads to purification. And that is the way that Scorpio rolls. Scorpio wasn't destructive for no reason. Pluto wasn't destructive for no reason. Like I said before, it's purifying, it's purification. That's a very necessary part of evolution. And that's a necessary and vital component of this particular transit. All right. Now, some of the adjectives and some of the adjectives that you can attribute to this transformation and evolution are intensity, action, bravery, courage, fear, anger, being triggered. Mars is an instigator. You ever know somebody who they just love to stir the pot? Whether it's with you, these are people who are not afraid of confrontation. They actually like it. They like to ruffle feathers. They like to pit people against each other. That's Mars at its core. And when you've got Mars opposing Pluto, it's like Mars is consistently prodding Pluto. I don't know if you, depending on how old you are, well, not how old you are, but in grade school, right? A lot of times you'll have boys that pick on girls. So they'll either throw things at them, pull their hair, ugh, another story for another day. But that antagonizing nature, that's Mars. And Mars is doing this to Pluto. So Mars is throwing rocks and hiding its hand. Mars is starting a fight and loving the fact that you're getting all riled up about it, right? Triggers. Get comfortable with triggers. Again, nothing happens for no reason. Triggers show you where you need to direct your attention, perhaps what you need to heal, what you need to eliminate, what you need to ameliorate. So triggering is going to be a major part of this. Control and power. This has a lot to do with that warlike energy. Control and power is very much a part of Pluto energy. whether you are exacting your will on other people externally, or whether you're creating a sort of environment where you can manipulate people into doing what you want them to do. That's the realm of Pluto. So whereas Mars is triggering in your face, Pluto is pulling the strings and manipulating. So these are things that are happening. But remember, all of this is happening against the backdrop of transformation and evolution. So when you're experiencing any of these things, it's not like, oh, this is just happening for the sake of it, or this is just how life is right now. Understand that it's happening for transformation and evolution. So treat it as such. The other words that are associated with transformation and evolution are protection, healing, and catharsis. This is very much Mars in Cancer. Remember, I said Mars in Cancer is like mama bear protecting her cubs. That protection is fierce. That desire that you have, you want to protect it at all costs, right? So that's Mars in Cancer. Healing and catharsis. Cancer is the sign of healing. So even in the midst of fighting, strife, conflict, war, not only is it for purification, it's also for healing and catharsis. Catharsis is release, relief from release. So yes, it's going to be dicey. It's going to be a little grimy for a minute, but it's this release that offers this catharsis that can help ease us into evolution. All right, so that's the first theme, transformation and evolution. The second theme is impulse versus process. Remember, oppositions, two planets facing off 180 degrees. On the one hand, we have Mars, which is all about impulsivity. Mars is this focused energy. It's self-centered. It's me, me, me. What do I want? How can I get it really fast? That's what's on the one end. Then you've got Pluto. On the other end, Pluto is a slow burn. I just said Mars is like, what do I want? How do I get to it fast enough? Pluto is like, we're evolving as a species. This shit takes 100 years. And it is a process that you cannot avoid. So on the one hand, you're like, I want this now. I want to change now. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I want different now. And on the other hand, Pluto's like, but baby girl or baby boy, this is a process. You can't speed up the process. You have to go through the steps. When you think about the caterpillar turning into the butterfly, the caterpillar isn't just caterpillar on day one, and then day three, it's a butterfly. You've got time where you've got to go into the chrysalis, break down everything, turn into mush, restructure as a butterfly, and then break through the chrysalis and fly away. It's a process with steps. Can't happen overnight. I know you feeling aggy. This is Pluto talking to Mars. I know you're feeling aggy. I know you want this. I know someone hurt your feelings and now you are ready to slash their face, punch them in the face, kill them even, right? And we're not condoning any of this. But when we're talking about Pluto facing off with Mars, those are very real possibilities. And so as a side note, please mind how you interact with people. People may get under your skin. They may say some really offensive shit. And we're seeing this playing out on the big stage, right? I've been around for a while, right? I can never remember in the history of at least my existence, a presidential election season where people are saying the most outlandish shit. Racism, sexism, like it blows my mind how this is just being freely said. That's Mars. And Mars in Cancer is like, oh my God, they said this about me? They're trying to take away what rights? This is the type of shit where people do some off the wall shit. So please remember that. When someone hurts your feelings, when someone steps on your toes, whether literally or figuratively, please do not play into the violence. There will be enough violence out there anyway. Don't add to it. But in any event, Mars is like, I want this now. Pluto is like, nah, you gotta wait. You gotta follow the process. Because it's not just that it's a process just for process sake. It's within the process that you learn things. Evolution isn't just change. Remember, I said it's like improvement. That improvement, especially because we're in the age of Aquarius where we're conscious of this, there's things to learn. There's things to learn in this process, and you can't skip that. So impulsivity on the one end and process and transformation and evolution on the other. And then the final theme that I will highlight is personal versus collective. And I touched on this before. Mars is a personal planet. It's about me, what I want, what I desire. That's on the one end. On the other end, we've got Pluto, which I said is a generational planet. It's all about what's good for the collective. We're evolving as a collective. Pluto's like, listen, I know that you're trying to change your life, right? I know that you're trying to lose weight, get more money, have the boo of your dreams. And yes, that's important. However, we're evolving as a species, honey. Like, that's important too. So on the one end, you're really thinking about your needs. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but this election season, it's like everyone is hyper focused and hypersensitive about their needs, this particular issue, this particular desire. Whereas Pluto is like, listen, that's important, but what's the bigger picture? What are we really focusing on in terms of the collective, right? Understanding that your needs are important. However, in the grand scheme of things, they might not be given as much importance as you give it. Or we may have to put this issue down for a little bit to focus on something else. So personal, aka Mars, versus collective, aka Pluto. So it's a lot. It's a lot that's going on. And again, this isn't happening in 2 weeks. This is 6 months of us changing, evolving, and doing it in a way that may be kind of uncomfortable. Okay. But at the end of this, we will emerge brand new. Maybe not brand new, but we will emerge anew. Things are going to be different. Right? Again, remember I said Mars is teetering the line between two signs. Pluto is teetering the line between two signs. So there is this energy of planetary shift, energetic shift. By the time this is done, by the time we get to April and into May of 2025, the dust will have settled. And then we'll have a whole new issue to obsess about. And that will, garner our attention. But for right now, the best use of this energy for you as you are watching this, allow the transformation to occur. That's number one. Don't resist it. As uncomfortable as it may be, you kind of have to ride the wave and roll with the punches. Speaking of punches, number two, violence. This is not a call to get violent, but you're going to see this. And you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, of seeing violence, of hearing about it. Hopefully, and I do not wish this on anyone, some people will experience it. That is the nature of war. That's the nature of power struggles and vying for control. Ultimately, remember that this is for purification, not just for the sake of violence randomly. Okay? And number three, I will say, is that understand the process, that this is a process. And for some, especially with Mars having to do with anger and rage, this may be a wonderful opportunity. And again, you want to take a look at your natal chart to see where you can transform how you deal with anger and rage. Perhaps heal from it. Remember, I said some of the words associated with this transit are healing and catharsis. Understanding healthy ways to release anger and rage may be a theme that plays out for a lot of people. And it's ultimately for the better, because when you get to understand your anger and rage and express it in constructive ways, you actually build. And building is all a part of evolution, which is the catch-all phrase for this particular transit. All right, my love. So that concludes this video on Mars opposite Pluto. Right? I definitely want you to share this video because we are all undergoing this. Remember, this isn't just a personal thing. This is a collective thing. So please share this video with people that you think need to hear this information, because when shit starts popping off, people, especially if they're not aware, they're going to be like, what the fuck is going on? I don't get this. And then it just makes them more angry, more enraged, and more impulsive. share this with someone who could definitely benefit from hearing this message. All right, my loves, thank you so much for tuning in. I sincerely wish you the best throughout this transit. Understand that when we come out on the other side of this, we will have evolved and we will have transformed for the better. All right, my loves, again, thank you for tuning in. I will see you in my next video. And if you are a channel member, you can expect a whole video on how this transit will transpire for each and every sign. All right, loves, take care, and I'll see you soon.